what time frame is the meeting expected? I know there will be questions and it's hard to judge, but roughly how long is your presentation?
I'm going to be relatively, on my part, relatively quick. We do have Robert Sibby. Hold on a sec. I've got a little bit of an echo. We have Robert Sibby and some other people from the the Department of Human Services, particularly the Division of Senior Services. It will be as long as people still are asking questions. Okay. We will continue, or as availability, right? For example, if Robert has a meeting at 11:30, he's got to go, right? Okay. But with that said, the first thing I want to announce is, first I'll formally introduce myself. My name is Gerald Reiner. I'm the Director of Purchasing for the County of Bergen. It is my responsibility statutorily to administer the process, right? I administer the process in accordance with the local public contracts law, and now we use an electronic bid portal. After that, what we have is we have our staff from Human Services. Right now I see Robert Sibby is on, and I see Tess Tomasi, and again, that's the difficulty of the Hollywood Squares, is you can't find everybody when you want to announce them or give them credit. But we'll go through it and introduce people as necessary. Like I said, we are recording this live on YouTube, so that way people will be able to see this after, and it will be a permanent record. So that way everyone can always refer this. This is the first time in the area plan that we are using an electronic bid submission. There are pros. Many pros. There are perhaps cons. The first con, just to be upfront and honest, is of course it's a learning curve for a new submission system. So I want to just recognize that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask early. While you're going through it, we will walk you through. We have some resources that we can provide to you. In the long run, though, the pros outweigh the cons tremendously, because what happens is you no longer have to make 8 copies and get them to the County of Bergen building by a particular time, right? So everybody kind of remembers that rush of going through everything. The other advantage is when you follow the workflow in the system, and there's one, okay, there was just a little bit of an echo. I was trying to brainstorm. When you follow the workflow of the system, it is unlikely that your proposal will be rejected because you forgot something, because all the required documents are being requested, and it will not let you submit without putting something in those slots. It's kind of like a job application. So that's the first part. I'm just going to kind of walk through a little bit of the online system. I feel it's a little bit more explanatory than when it was in paper. But again, that's my opinion. I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask questions, not just today, but of course, you can always reach out to us through the system. You can actually submit questions through the system, or you can email us directly. So I'm going to just share my screen. Oh, I have a chat. Let's see what this chat is. Okay. All right. Sorry. All these things you have to pay attention to. So plus, like many people, I'm in like tremendous brain fog from this wonderful storm that we had, as we all clean up. And, I think it's especially pertinent to the services that many of you provide, because the services that you are providing before the storm, for many of the populations, are even more critical now, because they lost substantially everything, or at least disrupted their life. So with that said, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'll try to go at a quick pace. If I start talking too fast, anybody can just shout at me and just tell me to slow down. I have a bad habit, growing up in the shadow of New York for my entire life. So, all right, so I'm going to share my screen. First things first, how do we find bids? How do we find opportunities? We're going to go through from the beginning just because it'll make it easier, because this may not be the only thing that you submit for, but it is going to be the primary way that the County of Bergen is going to solicit advertisements. Our website to find solicitations, which most of you have already found, is bergenbids.com. Makes it nice and easy. Eventually, we're trying to get the municipalities to also sign up and use this. It's at no cost to them, so that way you can go to one-stop shopping for services that some of these cities may be able to provide or solicit in the same way. So what we do is everybody, it's free to sign up. Basically what you do is you just go to either the become a vendor or the login. It'll take you to a screen. You'll go through the registration process. Of course, I'm already signed in and it showed a screen that you'll never see. So I apologize for that. But once you're logged in, you'll be able to see our portal, which will show the opportunities. The RFP that we're here to discuss is the Bergen County Area Plan for the Division of Senior Services. So when we go to view opportunity, and excuse me, my computer may not be as fast as it normally is because of running Zoom and everything. The first thing you'll notice is this calendar, so that way you can see what's going on. Like I said, questions can be submitted through the system up through September 21st, 2021. Based on the volume of questions submitted, we will make a determination if the close date or the due date of September 28th is still going to be the date. The reason why I say that is because if there are a tremendous amount of questions that we feel we have to address, not every question that is answered that is asked is responded to, because we only respond to the questions we feel are necessary to respond to. Although with solicitations like this, we try to explain more than less, because many of you are community partners and community volunteers, or you guys are running the good work of nonprofits. So that's the first thing. So what you can see now is we have roughly 20 days left. Again, we may extend it. It's a new system and everything like that. We're not looking to hurt anyone there. So the next thing is that you can see the documentation that are relevant to the solicitation. Everything here you should download, right? Unfortunately, there's not one button to download. So I do apologize for that. It's something we're working with the programmer to figure out. On the right here, you'll see this download, and you'll have documentation like proposal guidance. We tried to do our best to name them, and where possible, had a description that gave more detail as to what it is the document are, right? One of the things to point out, which is relatively new in the past couple of years, is this digital purchase order opt-in form. We strongly encourage everyone to consider receiving their purchase orders electronically. That will help get you paid faster if you're awarded. That is always a great thing. Some of these you can click here and it'll expand a little bit more detail. But a lot of these papers are things that you've seen before in paper. It's just we broke them out into separate files to make it easier to manage when you're filling out your response, right? So what the suggestion is to kind of create one folder in your computer, or if you're fortunate enough to have a network drive with multiple participants, so that way everything can be downloaded into that one folder. And then you can this also helps you parse it out if you have multiple people helping to fill out the application, right? Although many of you I know are one-person shops, so or limited people. There are some things that are going to look odd, but I think many of you have been in proposals before. This investment activities in Iran, that is a law that requires us to have you fill it out. The good news is it is no longer a incurable document. We just have to get that before contracting. If you guys had $10 million of disposable assets and you chose to invest it in Iran, you would not be eligible to be awarded a contract. If you had $10 million of disposable assets, many of you wouldn't need to be here because this grant would be nothing compared to your overall budget. So I apologize for my bad humor sometimes, but hopefully it's not offensive. Yeah. So on that note, are there any questions so far? And we have, let's see if I can pull up, I'm going to stop sharing for a second just to make it easier in case there's any questions, if I can figure this out. Okay, stop sharing. So we have a couple different ways that you can ask questions. One is there's a hand raise feature in Zoom if you're familiar with it. If you're not, I mean, you can also just traditionally raise your hand in the screen. I just want to, again, make sure that we're going at a pace that I'm not skipping anybody that may have a question. So let me just check the second screen. Okay. So as of right now, I don't see anyone that is asking a question, so I'll go back to my screen share. Let me just double check one more time. Okay. All right. So then we have, and you'll see this broken out more into the technical documents. We have the different funding categories that we generally break them up into: access, caregiver needs, community support, home support, and nutrition support. It allows you in the system, when you prepare a response, to choose which one or all. And if you're, so for example, some agencies will submit for multiple categories. So what they'll do is that there's certain documents that'll be requested for, you'll only have to submit once, but then your narrative, you may have to submit twice because the narrative is for the two different funding parts, right? So then what'll happen is when senior services and the evaluation committee reviews it, they'll be able to separate out into the different funding categories that are provided from the state. These are very large buckets. You'll see in the documents that they get even more granular. Oh my God, I couldn't pronounce that. They get even more detailed in the documents as to what makes up nutrition support, home support, community support, caregiver needs, and access. Again, that's one of those things. If you have questions or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us. And Naomi, multiple grants for one category, the system will allow you to do that. You can do a second submission for the one category. And if for some reason it doesn't, just send us a message and we'll make sure and we'll find a workaround. Again, this is a learning process for both of us because it's the first time we've done this solicitation through the system. It doesn't mean, it doesn't mean, well, I'm never going to say we're not infallible, right? We're all human. So here's where I said where it broke it out, kind of like a job application where it tells you very clearly which forms you have to submit and which forms you should submit if you can, but you don't have to at the time of submitting your proposal. So it says anywhere it says mandatory, obviously you're going to have to submit that, the ownership disclosure, the budget proposal summary sheet. Again, that's where it'll let you choose which section, the proposal documentation, and there's a page 6 of the guidelines to give you a little bit more detail. Those are things like the reference letters, community support letters, those kind of things, stuff like that. There's general terms and conditions. This one is a little finicky. I'm just going to download it to show it, and hopefully it shows up on the screen. Here we go. Can you all see Excel opening? Just someone nod their head. Perfect. So in this document, if you're not familiar with Excel and tabs, down at the bottom, you see tabs. It gives you instructions. But in this one, these are all categories. These are all local public contracts law things or definitions. And what happens is that it'll ask you in response, you see that there's a little drop down, this little triangle where it's asking you, yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree. Basically, we're looking for you to agree to all these things. These are all just normal, nothing crazy, things like affirmative action, non-discrimination, termination provisions, things that have been in the contract for forever. But what we're doing is we're adding them in this way, so that way we have an affirmative from your agency that you saw this and were able to understand it. Particularly in this contract, HIPAA is part of some of the service delivery that you guys do. And then even stuff like the public emergency, which we just had. In the event of a public emergency, we have the right to get services from whoever can do it, right? Because we want to make sure that services are maintained and everything like that. So nothing really crazy. And then there's a basic insurance requirement. Again, it's just asking for you to do the yes or the no. If it does no, it's going to make you put a comment in for some reason. Well, not for some reason, but I can't imagine for most of your agencies why this would come up as an issue. So that one's a little unique. So that's why I wanted to call it out. Also here, when you're logged in, you'll be able to see public notices as they're put out. You'll be able to see, well, you know what? I think here's where I have to admit I'm not sure, because I can see all the questions that were asked. I cannot guarantee that you could see all the questions that were asked. But what I will say is that when we respond to them, what will happen is we will publish a document that has all of the questions and all the answers in one consolidated document, so that way everyone has the same opportunity, the same information. I believe that based on my access, that's why I can see them all. But I just, usually I log into a little bit of a different screen. So again, as we can see, this is where you can also, you could submit new questions. And some of them, if it's a quick clarification, something that's very simple, that we don't need to issue a formal addenda or a formal notice, we may respond directly to you, and then you'll get that through here too. So, which you should get an email, or the person that's logged in will get an email, right? So that's the first thing, is you have to understand who is in your organization going to be responsible for doing the final submission. And again, we recognize that this is the first time. There's the learning curve on both parts, the County of Bergen and for your agency. So we want to make sure that you ask, we want to really enforce or really stress that there are no questions that if you're not sure, you shouldn't ask, right? Every question is valid. Every opportunity that we can have to make sure that something is clarified is only going to benefit better for our clients, the county, and your agency. So I know that's a little gospel-y, but I just want to really be abundantly clear that we are going to do our best to make sure that we walk you through as much as possible. With that said, the rule of thumb is we generally suggest to prepare your response as if it's due the day before, right? Or a couple of days before if you can, right? Again, it's going to depend on your agency or how many people you need to input the data or to get the different parts of the proposal together. But if you plan for the day before and you have an issue, then you can call us and we will do our best. Again, we have staff here. We have resources with Bonfire, which is our e-procurement platform that we can help connect you with, so that way we can get you through and help you submit. If you do it an hour before it's due, it's going to be very difficult. We're going to try our best to help you, but it's going to be very difficult. So what I would always kind of suggest is kind of target at minimum the day before as your unofficial due date, right? You can, and then the one thing I want to make clear is that once you submit, even if you submit it tomorrow, right, and you need to make a change, you can make a change up until the point in the system that it says it's due. Right. So up until September 28th, I think at noon, you can make a change, or you could swap out a document. So you're not locked in, right? So there's no risk in trying to put in some of those documents that you have to produce ahead of time, right? Let me just check the chat. Will we receive the login credentials? Okay, so everyone who hasn't logged in, what you do is you go to bergenbids.com and you can create a new profile, and it's a free registration. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to set up, and then you'll be able to go in and start. The separate Zoom for financial questions, that will be part of this too, but I'm starting with the local public contracts law and the system first, and then what's going to happen is that the representatives from Human Services will be able to answer more detailed questions about the programmatic and the financing aspect of the proposal. So that's the answer to those two questions. And the last thing to just show is that there is a little video when you're logged in that shows you how to do the submission process. When you go to prepare the submission, I'm just going to click on it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So that way you can kind of see it. And again, it's gonna drop in some information from the profile. It's gonna show you your calendar, your closing time, all in a nice little dashboard. Setting up the decisions, you'd be choosing the decisions, and so on. So I'm not going to go heavy into it right now, just because, again, there's so many other questions that you guys are going to have. But once you choose a decision, that's when it'll ask you and go into the different documentations to upload. We're going to take it with strides. There will be mistakes on our part. There will be mistakes on your part. Again, we're all human. We're going to get through it together, and we're going to take as much time and provide as much resources as you need to submit a proposal. And in the long run, this will be easier because then the electronic submission should allow us to evaluate them faster and then hopefully award faster. Knock on wood. No pending, as we hope, no other pending natural disasters. Some years there have been changes sent out during the open period. Would we get that information on the portal? Yes. So my goodness, my screen is not, okay, here we go, stop sharing. All of the addenda or the changes will be issued through the Bonfire platform. So what will happen is that you will get an email once you download, or once you click, once you click on the opportunity to start downloading documents, you will always get an email from the system. And that'll be pretty much the only way. The other way that we would normally do it is we would also put it in the newspaper, but put it in the newspaper, who's picked up a copy of the Bergen Record lately and seen what it looks like? Kind of embarrassing, and then if you have, even just going through all those public notices is not the easiest thing in the world. So this is actually easier. It'll be easier to see, easier to read, and you'll be able to see a timestamp of what's going on. Generally speaking, we will not issue anything later than 5 days before the due date. And even then, if it was something of magnitude or something that needed to be clarified where it could change your proposal, we would then extend the due date also, just to make sure that that was as clear as possible. Let me just refresh my screen. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, my screen is just all sorts of just bear with me. I have to close some windows to free up some memory. So with that, that is, can someone just talk just so I can make sure you're still there? Because for some reason I cannot see the Zoom right now.
We're still here.
Okay. So Robert or Tess or someone from Human Services, if you want to start talking about the finance part, I cannot see my Zoom anymore, but I'll stay logged in because I think if I close, it might close the whole thing.
Gerald, can you hear me? It's Lorraine.
Yes.
I just wanted to, before we even continue, just thank you for your presentation, because I have to say, this is new to all of us, a little scary when we heard about it. But it doesn't seem as frightening as it did when we were thinking, oh my God, this is the first time everybody is going to experience this. So I want to thank you because you really simplified a process that is totally complex, but thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining today. We've been through so much for the last 18 months that let's hope moving forward we could get back to some kind of new normal. And but thank you. And I think maybe Robert should be the next one to speak. I don't know, because I don't know what Robert's schedule is, but thank you.
No problem. So Robert, you should have access if you need to share screen or whatnot. It should work fine.
Okay, hi, I'm Robert Seavey with the Department of Human Services, the Contract Administration Unit. And I just would like to introduce those from Senior Services who are also on this call. That was Lorraine Giavono, the Director of Senior Services that you just heard. We also have Kerry Shearer, the Deputy Director of Senior Services. We have Tess Tomasi, who's the Supervisor of Information and Assistance and Care Management. We have David Topchishvili, the Program Monitor and Contract Administrator for Senior Services. And we also have Brian Yoon, who's the Business Manager who handles the finances for Senior Services. And one of the questions that David mentioned to me was that some people were asking questions and they weren't getting responses. And Gerald, I noticed when I logged in, I couldn't see the questions.
Yeah, so after today, we're going to periodically, at least once a week, run a report. And then from the report, what we'll do is I'll send it to Human Services because many of those questions can only be requested, answered by Human Services.
Okay. Were there any questions specifically with regards to the budget that anybody had?
Excuse me.
And David, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay.
So unfortunately, Robert, I cannot see if anyone is chatting or it's very awkward. It's I can see you, but I can't see anything else.
Okay.
The loveliness of technology.
Okay, so a couple of questions in the chat. Will you send the YouTube link of the presentation?
Yes, absolutely. The YouTube link will be sent out through the Bonfire system. And in addition to that, what we'll do is I will send the link to Human Services, and then that way we can send it to all the current providers and anybody we may have on a list.
Okay. And then another question is, can more than one person from the same agency both have access and submit documents?
So the answer is yes. However, though, is that to collaborate on a single proposal, what I would suggest is to create a more to sign up as with a generic email or generic, share the username and password. Because only the one submission, full submission, you can't take two users and then collaborate into one submission. But there is a limited number of users that your agency can create. If you wanted to register 4 or 5 times, you're perfectly welcome to.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
As a Jewish organization, the proposal is due in the middle of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. So if changes are posted in the last week, we won't be able to see them as we don't work on these holidays. We don't check email. So that's an issue for us.
So I apologize for that. I missed that. I had some issues syncing my Shabbat calendar. So that is my fault. And we will make sure that we avoid Sukkot, because September is a very busy month. As we know, we just had Rosh Hashanah, Shana Tova, and you know, it's one of those months that everything's aligned, right? So it's very busy. So we'll push it out so that way there's some extra time for there respectfully.
Thank you.
Can I ask, are we able to talk yet about specific components for which to apply?
Yes, you're free to, yes.
Okay, so Bergen Family does congregate meals within the adult day program. We do not want to be the county's provider for congregate meals all over your network. So what do I do to make sure we can still have congregate meals delivered to my site to provide to the adults? Do I have to do the congregate meal RFP? Please say no.
You know, that one I think is, I think we're just gonna have to talk internally. We may reach out to you just to make sure we get a very specific answer. Because your clients would be eligible for congregate meals. However, though, is that we have to just make sure we have the capacity and the ability to deliver them and all that fun stuff.
Oh, no, they've been delivered for the last 30 years. It's just I want to make sure that I don't have to fill out a special project. We don't get any funding for it. The meals just show up.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we're going to just converse internally to make sure that we give you the appropriate answer.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Naomi from Jewish Federation. We ask this question every year, but I just want to make sure that we get it right in case you change anything. We have a 5-day-a-week meal delivered program and a weekend. Do we have to do it as 2 separate proposals this year, or can we put them all in one?
Robert or Tess, do you perhaps know the answer, or Lorraine?
David? I don't know the answer. Maybe David knows it.
Yeah, because some years, some rounds you have to do the 5-day-a-week, and then you have to do the weekends as a separate one. And I don't remember if you combined them this last term and if you kept that.
So let's be safe. What we'll do is we have your question. We're going to answer it formally because I think it's best to really just make sure we have all of our ducks in a row.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
There's another question in the chat. Are you saying the deadline will be moved from September 28th to another date?
We will move it into October. We're just going to double check on the dates to make sure that I'm not going to inadvertently move it into October on what could be another contentious date. Not contentious, that's the wrong word. I apologize.
Okay.
That'll give us more time also, Robert, to answer questions in more greater detail without having the proverbial gun against their head.
Okay.
But the system will update and you will see it very clearly and plainly. And when in doubt, you can always just shoot us an email or call and we'll do our best to, like I said, always work with you.
Okay. Another question is, can you walk us through how to set up multiple applications within the same category?
So at this moment, I cannot because my computer is kind of crashing. But what we could do is what I will say is that if people can email me, I'll schedule time with one of my buyers to be able to help walk them through on an individualized basis. And what we'll do is then after that, we'll record a separate instructional video. And we'll also ask Bonfire if they have an instructional video that we could submit and post for everyone to see. All right. Well, so given that technology is failing, and I know it's ironic right now. I think it's just the number of users and For taxpayers of the County of Bergen, you'll be happy to know we're very frugal with our computers and technology equipment. With that said, further questions, I'm going to suggest to submit through the system. You can call, you can email us, you can send them through the system. Things that are technical in nature and helping you fill out your proposal, we can answer right away and do our best to help you right then and there. Things that are technical in nature to specifically the requirements and something like that, we'll have to answer more broadly, so that way everyone has the same information. Only because of technology failures, I'm going to end this session right now, and I really apologize for that. I don't know what's going on. I just can't see anything right now. So,
Carol, there's just one last question, if we could. What is the number to call for support with using the system?
sure, it's 201-336-7100. That should get you the Division of Purchasing.
And when can we expect the answers to all the questions that have been submitted?
So the answers that were submitted to date, what we're going to do is we're going to wait to close of business today. I will run the report, send it to Human Services. Based on what I've seen so far in the questions, I would anticipate that we would be able to have answers by next Tuesday, because I didn't see anything of great gravitas.
Can I just ask you one quick question? When we have to upload all those documents that are required, do we do them as separate documents, or we upload them as one PDF with all the documents included?
It's best to keep them as separate documents, because there'll be a slot for the separate documents. But if for some reason you were having trouble with that, if you had one large file that had everything and just put that in every spot, at least that's a workaround to just make sure that everything is submitted, right? So our preference is individual files. That's the easiest for us to go through and do the compliance quickly.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, with that, again, I'm going to end this. It's going to close kind of abruptly, so I apologize. And then the YouTube video will be posted no later than by 11:30 today. I just want to make sure that there were no, that everything was recorded. And I might have to just overwrite the stream version just to make sure, again, everybody has access to it. So I apologize for the technical glitches. Again, the irony is not lost with asking you to use technology to submit while I am having a technological failure. I apologize profusely. These things happen. But again, that's why we're going to make sure that we provide you with as many resources as possible to be able to make your submission successful. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you joining. Oh, you know what? It fixed.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, please.
For the attachments, do we have to, if we're applying for more than one category, do we need to submit the attachments that are applicable to the agency for each, or can we do one set of attachments that goes to the different,
So I believe it's set up to do one set of attachments for each funding category that you're requesting for. We'll double check that and make sure we announce it clearly. If for some reason you were having trouble with that, so what happens is that by putting in the different categories, it won't lock you out from being considered if for some reason you had an attachment that also had you provided for another category, right? That just makes it easier for us. Right. By having it separate, it makes it easier for us to be able to parse it out to different groups for the evaluation purposes. But again, first time, first submission, we're going to be incredibly, we're going to be incredibly liberal, right? So if you have trouble and the best way for you is to submit it all as one narrative or one package, right? As long as you have one complete package, Senior Services will be able to evaluate it. Nothing will lock you out from something else. there are a couple of groups that only go for like one category, and it just makes it easier for them.
Okay.
Okay.
And was Brian going to discuss anything about the budget or the financial requirements? Like, is the formatting similar to previous submissions, or are there new forms, like there's a new submission, there's a new system?
So it's
I know
fundamentally identical as prior years. There hasn't been any substantial changes. The benefit now is that you get to download it in Excel, fill it out in Excel, and upload it in Excel.
Okay, great. Because I know he said, are there any budget questions? And then we went to a different topic.
No, it's no problem. Again, it's been the same. We're capturing virtually the same budget data. And because it's a digital document, that should actually make it a little easier to submit for many people. And then that way you could also, there are categories in it that are locked down, so you can't change certain things, just to make sure that everything is being submitted the right way.
Right.
But again, that's one of those things that we can do clarifications on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, so like I said, I'm going to end it now, so I apologize for the abruptness. We will post it. This will be posted on YouTube. It will be posted. The link will be posted on Bonfire. We will send it around to as many people as we have contact information for. And then from there, we expect questions, and we will get you answers as soon as possible. And we're just going to take it in strides together. So thank you so much for joining.